Two questions. If you were to try to explain the imbalance in this world to either a small child or, say, a visitor from another planet, and they had no idea, what would you tell them? And you remember in our last interview in Minneapolis how you had mentioned the role of the drunken Indian stereotype and its role in the evolution of the modern day activist. These two questions were asked of the poet activist John Trudell, Santee Sioux member who acted as spokesperson for the Alcatraz occupation and as chairman for AIM in the 70s. In his answers, there were things that I agree with and things that are beyond my comprehension. But I know that his voice is unique, so that is why I decided to perform this. They have entered the reality of the already dead, who are just spending their lives waiting to die. The reality of the spiritually disconnected. This is the reality that seems to be prevalent. Because it's like, you look at this leadership, or you look at the institutions, or the things that are held up in these esteems, and none of these things seem to have any spiritual relationship to life. It's almost like no spiritual recognition. We're in a time in reality where the human beings, at least in this technologic world, no longer remember the original dream. They no longer remember their ancestors or the teachings or the knowledge. They no longer have these things of their ancestry. So it's almost like they're spiritually disconnected from their own past. And when you look at the situations and the conditions that we live in now, with the way that, with the cancers of greed and war, the way that these viruses, these diseases have spread, no one is really taking responsibility to effectively deal with these things. I mean, people are having emotional reactions and emotional outbursts and these types of things, but no one's taking clear and coherent action to deal with this disease of aggression that is taking place. So because of that, it's almost like they have no spiritual relationship to their own descendants. It's like no spiritual relationship to the past, the ancestry. No spiritual relationship to the ancestry in the shape of the future. So whatever this disease of aggression and violence and greed, whatever this disease mentality is that lives in this life system now, it's eating up the spirit of the disease. And they don't even know it's happening. They have no relationship to being. They only function and react as humans. They have no relationship to being. Being always is. This is how we're with our ancestry and with our descendants, being. When we leave as humans, we go back to being. Being. Human being, that really means something. But we live in a reality now, or in a time, where I would say to anyone, protect your spirit. Protect your spirit, because you're in the place where spirits get eaten. About the whole idea of the drunken Indian. I mean, I don't remember what I said before, but I know that without them, we wouldn't be here today, the Native peoples. Because there was a time as a Native person in America, I mean, obviously we went from being the only people here to where we became the enemy of the people who came to take it away from us. This is what genocide and manifest destiny was all about. So we had that experience. And by the 1900s, by the beginning of the 1900s, pretty much we had all been confined and contained into reservations or whatever, and taken off into the educational religious systems as children, taken away. And as that was happening, taking the children away, and this was not an aberration, taking the children of the Native people. That was the standard. So, but feeding them off into the religious educational system. So basically, they were telling now the Native people that we couldn't be who we were anymore, Indians. We couldn't be Indians. We needed to be white. So here we were, historically speaking, in a situation where we couldn't be who we were, and we didn't want to be who our oppressors wanted us to be. So I think that that's what that whole period of that drunken Indian time, that so-called period of time, where the drunken Indian, or that image and that stereotypical thing came from. But this is the Indian that saved us. Because this is the Indian that said, I can't be who I am, and I'm not going to be who you tell me to be. So I'll just be nothing. I'll be something else. I'll just do my time and get through it. I'll erase the pain and I'll just do what I have to get through it. But I will not become you. And I think that they're the ones that saved something about us as Native peoples. By refusing to submit, this was their rebellion. This was their way. And you know, later when the activists came along, see, I always felt that they made it possible for us activists later, because if they hadn't taken that route, they would have had to have had the white mind or be destroyed from trying to be who they really are. So they protected the identity of who they really were through this mask, wearing this disguise. I'm a human being. You will not recognize me as a human being, as who I truly am. So I will hide behind this, so that you don't kill me. Thank you.